All right, guys. So we've got an action-packed hour. And as the name suggests, we're going to be talking about how to craft the perfect new product concept. For those of you who are new here today, my name is Michael Coden. I'm the head of marketing at ProQuo. And today I am joined by Sophia Loricella, who's the Senior Innovations Manager of Heineken. Sophia, thank you for
Hi,
joining
guys.
today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're going to do proper introductions in a second. But to kick things off, I wanted to introduce a partner of ProQuo, which is that of the Copy Club. If you don't already know them, you're missing out. You should. They're a community of dynamic marketers, and the crew there host loads of events, courses, trainings, brand consultations, you name it, they do it. They even have their own like matchmaking service, which actually ProQuo uses to find awesome people like Amelia, who's hosting the webinar today. They're awesome. Get in touch. Fran, I don't know if you want to come off mute and just say a quick hello.
Hello, I'm sorry you can't see my face, but hello, lovely to meet you. If anyone is interested in the Copy Club, I'm sure ProQuo will be happy to put you in touch with me, and we will welcome you with very open arms.
Absolutely. They're fantastic. And our webinar today is a part of a monthly series that we call What the Fact, which aims to answer the most frequently asked questions in the world of brand management. We're covering topics in the coming months about how to build the perfect brand strategy, how to build a brand that's unforgettable, that goes beyond just building brand awareness, and how to launch a media campaign to meet your sales goals. So if you like today's session and you learn something from the session that we're about to go through, we'd love for you to join us in a future webinar. Be on the lookout for invitations. They go out a couple weeks before the event itself, and they're running monthly. As I said, I'm Michael. I'm the head of marketing at ProQuo. For those that are new to ProQuo, we're a brand management platform that delivers marketers with a custom action plan based on their growth goals. So our platform essentially keeps a real-time analysis of where your brand stands versus your competition in your category. And it essentially tells you the decisions that you should make daily across your marketing efforts to get certainty behind your specific growth goals. So you basically tell ProQuo what it is that you want to achieve for your brand, and ProQuo understands from real people's feelings and thoughts the marketing actions that you should be taking to reach those growth goals. Before ProQuo, I was at Unilever. I spent a whopping 10 years there, and I worked in their global brand development team. I started in the US. I've worked across Australia and the UK markets, primarily within their deodorants category. And what I did was I built new products, both in the product itself, the concept behind them, and then the campaign. So innovation in kind of brand in the world of brand management is super close to my heart, and we'll discuss all of that a little bit later. I'm joined by Sophia Loricella. Sophia, I don't know if you want to say a quick hello.
Yeah. Yeah. So as Michael mentioned, I'm at Heineken. I'm at the USA at Outpost. I know a lot of people are joining from all over the world here today, which is great. And I'm sure every one of you have at least had a Heineken at some point in life. But I joined Heineken about 2 years ago, and Heineken kind of put this new pressure on themselves to become more of a beverage company. So going beyond beer and developing products that aren't just, the next light beer, the next non-alcoholic beer, and really kind of taking a stand and focusing on another area of development. And so I joined, and that's kind of been my focus ever since. It's been really exciting. We've, been able to launch things even during the pandemic. We've been going through ideations over the course of that time. And it's been really exciting to work in, specifically in innovation. Before I came to Heineken, I was at BBDO, which is a huge creative agency with offices all over the world. And I actually was on alcohol brands there too. I was working on Grey Goose and Bacardi, which was really exciting because it kind of got me into this world of Alc Bev and CPG. And so working with them to create global content and creative platforms like massive TV commercials and just overarching brand stories. So that's kind of how I really got into the interesting area of, beverages and CPG. And it it piqued my interest, and now I'm excited to be making the products that are competing against those brands. So today I'll give you guys a little bit of a peek under the hood, so to speak, about some products that we've recently launched and how we got there, which I think is really exciting.
That's awesome. Thanks, Sophia. And thanks again for joining us.
Oh my gosh, happy to be here.
We're going to get into the meat and bones of it. Today, we're going to be covering kind of 5 subjects. What is your new product doing for your business? Every single piece of innovation, whatever it is, should have an objective kind of to drive your business forward. So we're going to start there. Then we're going to talk about the ingredients to structure a new product concept, looking specifically at how to craft a killer insight, the differences in product benefits, and how to make a reason to believe that wraps around your concept. And then we're going to talk about the positioning of your concept and how your concept can strengthen the relationship that your brand has with people. And finally, we're going to show you how to work on a concept and optimize it back towards the growth goals that you set up from the start. So not to kind of create any spoilers, but if you're currently working on a piece of NPD or thinking through kind of your innovation pipeline, we have made a concept generator, which helps you structure the perfect concept using the learnings of today. And we have a feature within Proco called Creative Lab, which can tell you how powerful that concept is and exactly how to make that concept its best. So for everyone that's here today, we'd be happy to give that to you guys for free. Just drop a message in the chat or raise your hand, whatever is easiest for you, and we can make sure that you get that concept generator template and access to the Creative Lab. So let's get started with stage 1. It's worth kind of setting kind of where we are with when it comes to new product development and what does it mean by NPD. A new product's where an initial concept's transformed into a marketable item. So it's an innovation. That could be a new variant, it could be a new flavor, it could be a new scent, it could be a new design, it could be a new product size, a new format, whatever. Anything that's new that you're looking to create from idea to either the physical or the virtual aisle is what we mean by NPD. And in any new product development, there's motivations and benefits tied to a new product launch. So why a business would aim to innovate, how it can make sure that it crafts a concept to deliver, and how all of that meets the business objective of a brand. So to start, I thought it was really helpful to look at like potential business objectives that you might have across your brands, which you'll want to kind of tie your NPD back to. I remember when working at Unilever, I spent a lot of time on Axe links. And the first place that we really started was, what is the role of the NPD within the business? You know, what is it that, what's the commercial objective of doing this in the first place? And Sophia's going to take you through some anecdotes behind these objectives, but I thought it would be helpful just to get all on the same baseline and give a brief overview of a few of them here. It isn't an exhaustive list, but it is important to understand kind of what the goal is of your NPD to start. So taking them each in turn, penetration. So penetration is essentially defined by the percentage of households that your brand's found in during one calendar year. So if you're dialing in from a small brand and you're looking to grow and you want to become more of a household name, your business objective for a new innovation might be to drive penetration or to essentially get into more households in this year than you were in the previous year. Expanding your customer base is another potential objective. So your customer base are people who essentially are purchasing your product. And what I love about certain categories is that sometimes that person can be the same as the person that's using your product. And other times that person can be actually different. The shopper can be very different than the user. So if your brand's looking to grow by connecting with a new set of buyers, the role of your innovation may be to get a new target audience or a new shopper profile to start purchasing your product. Thirdly, we've got steal market share. So that's a really common goal for some disruptive challenger brands. who have maybe either a competitor that's really close to them in terms of share, or a clear market leader that they're just kind of picking the scab of and trying to itch away at. And the goal for your new product in that case might be to get current buyers of another brand to actually choose to buy your brand instead of theirs. And so you can do really creative things like competitive claims and developing your product with a formulation that outperforms the competition if your goal is related to stealing market share. And last but not least, we've got disrupting the category. So if you're looking to shake things up and do things differently, it might be that you want to grow your category's value by, for example, bringing in new users into the category who weren't currently in market in the previous year, and taking the category expectations into a completely different direction. And we're going to actually touch on that a bit later in the third section. So enough from me. Sophia, I'm going to pass the mic over to you to take us a bit deeper into these 4 bits.
Awesome. So what Michael was kind of building on, I will take and kind of give you guys some examples, threading a product that we actually launched last November, mid-pandemic, probably one of the worst points of the year. We actually decided to launch a product that we had been ideating on and concepting on for a while. And so that'll be kind of seen throughout, but then I'm also going to share some examples of other brands that I've admired or seen who have built again some of these objectives. And I think one thing to note, right, is like you can kind of have all these objectives. It's not just a, menu picking. If these all are things that you're trying to goal for, I think you can kind of approach them and leverage insights from them as well. So first and foremost, penetration. We've all been grocery shopping a ton this year, seeing the aisles, and I think taking a little bit harder of a look at how insane those aisles truly are and how many products you can purchase, whether it's beauty, food, drinks, whatever it may be. And so it's really important to kind of take stock of what the competition looks like and what is happening in the category. So the product that I'm going to be talking about today, you guys will probably get a really quick understanding of it, but leans into the lemonade and tea category. And so when doing our research, we learned that 3 in 4 households actually purchase non-alcoholic lemonade and tea at crazy high rates, right? So you're looking at, and this is specific to the US, but still these numbers are massive even for one country. So 745 million and $4 billion industries for non-alcoholic products is huge, right? And so that's some data that you can't ignore. And I think something that's interesting is figuring out where in which your products kind of start from. So for us, we always look to non-alcoholic trends and see what's going to kind of make its way into alcohol. And so for this, we were like, okay, there's something here. Let's figure out what's next. And so when looking at this customer base, one thing that for us was really exciting was like, at what point is there a difference between buying a non-alcoholic product and buying the alcoholic product? And so for us, this consumer base was really important. I mean, we have always said at Heineken that we're a consumer first company, right? We're creating beverages for people to consume. And as a result, they're a number one priority. So every innovation coming out of Heineken is going to really take a hard look at what consumers want. We're not going to be creating things that people don't want, because at the end of the day, we're trying to basically predict your needs in the future. Really hard. I don't have a crystal ball, but this kind of helps us to get there. And so for us, we're trying to figure out how we can plus up our users. So how can we look at the consumer base from a non-alc and also plus them up into alc? And so one thing that I thought was really helpful for us was we saw that only 1 in 10 households actually purchase hard lemonade and tea. So a real big discrepancy between the two, which I think allowed us to propel into this area of hard alcohol with lemonade and tea. I do want to call out while I'm on this slide, The Honest Company, because this is a great example of a brand that started somewhere and continued to innovate and pulled consumers in from other areas. So I think everyone's probably familiar. It was started as a baby mother's company, like creating better products for your child and for the mom as well. And they've since now expanded into cleaning products. They've expanded into a fantastic beauty brand. And they've basically started to kind of grab consumers at other stages in their life. So that way they're creating these loyalists at different times. And so for me, thinking about the expansion areas is really exciting as your brand continues to grow. Driving market share. So I'll give you guys a little tidbit. Heineken, even though we're the second largest brewer in the world. And I'm sure, really massive in countries like the UK, Italy, obviously the Netherlands, Africa, Asia. The US, we're actually only a 6% player, right? So we're going up big guys like Constellation and Anheuser-Busch and AB InBev. Anheuser-Busch, AB InBev, same thing. You guys probably hear me reference that throughout, but there's a really important thing to understand, not just your brand as a whole, but what is the category opportunity. So seeing where there's actual growth happening will allow you to see where you can pull that market share from other competitors. And so that information is really insightful because, for example, there's an 8% category growth year over year for ready to drink alcoholic lemonades and teas. And so while that number isn't as massive as, let's say, the wine growth for canned wines growing at 70% year over year, 8% is still a very high number for us to look at and say, okay, there's something here. People are interested in this. It's continuing to grow. Anything over 1% at this point, people can dip their hands into and think of something fun. So I think one thing for small businesses especially is realizing off the bat, you're not going to be stealing market share from your competitors, right? That's going to take a little bit of time. But what you can do is grab growth and consumers from this 8% or whatever the percentage growth is. So when you're looking at those numbers, don't feel defeated by being, let's just say, the second or fourth or whatever it may be within your industry, right? Like 4% player is small, but we have an opportunity to grab a lot of that new growth for people. Disrupting the category, which is probably my favorite thing to look at. For this, you kind of have to really dig into the data and ask the why. Why is this happening? Why are people not drinking this and drinking that? Why are people using this product and not using that product? And I think, for us at Heineken, and I think any area of business I've worked in, it's figuring out what consumers are really interested in. And that takes a little bit more of a deep dive into trends and what is looking to become the next biggest thing. For a lot of us, health and wellness is super important. It's become not just something that you're doing in January when the new year starts, you're really looking at it as a whole. And so when we were looking at the data between why people drink non-alcoholic lemonade and don't drink alcoholic lemonade as much, especially as they get older, we were seeing that it's because of the high calories and high sugar in a lot of the options out there. So Mike's Hard Lemonade, Twisted Tea, have up to like 220 calories, 32 grams of sugar in a 12-ounce bottle, which is massive, right? Like that is not a small number. And like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's too high for people to be consuming on a regular basis. And so especially as you continue to grow up and your palate changes and you mature, thinking about what the consumer will be interested in, right? We're now innovating for brands and products that people will be interested in as the years go on, right? You want to almost like put something out here, even when your consumer's here, because they're going to meet you right there, right? It's like this kind of perfect science of figuring out what people want without knowing it. And so for us, a big way to disrupt this category was thinking about something that we could take consumers' ever-changing tastes and develop something on with a liquid. And then last but not least, identifying your audience. This is really important because, right, there's a huge amount of people in the world. There's massive demographics. Everyone has different interests and people have different needs. And so what you want to do is always kind of focus in on who your target consumer is. Now, I will say that products can be for anyone, but it's really important to locate your target consumer when ideating so you can create the product needs for your consumer. I think a great example of this is like sometimes you'll see a brand that has a really specific person in mind, and then it'll continue to expand and go outward, right? So there's some trendsetters, there's influencers, products continue to grow. But the biggest part for us that I really enjoy looking at is not necessarily even location or age, but their lifestyle and behavior. This is why when I was, working with Michael and Amelia on this, I was really excited about the lifestyle and behavior component, because I think that is what's most important to people nowadays, especially even after the year and a half that we've had. Your behaviors and your lifestyle are going to make the most impact on what your product choices will be and what you're going to buy. So going into the structure of the concept. So what I will say is this is an area that can flex based upon what your product is, right? It's going to have different molds and different features, but the crux of this, which we'll get to with insights and benefits and reasons to believe, are the three most important areas, I think, for any product. Everything you own, whether it's hand cream or, you know, whatever, should be able to answer these specific questions. So the next. There we go. So as I mentioned, insights, benefits, and reasons to believe. These are everything that we do throughout my career, whether it was working in fashion tech or alcohol, we always answered these questions, and they can be answered really simply, right? I think sometimes people get caught up with flowery language or really making things too difficult to understand. But at the end of the day, these should all be really easy things that a consumer would tell you, right? We should be using consumer language across these three pillars. So diving into the first one, an insight. So we define insight as a fundamental human truth. And I think it's for us a way to really make a difference and figuring out what people are currently in the same space of as to what they want in the future. So what are you motivated by? You know, what are you observing in human behavior? And so this is really important. And I think on the next slide, we have a few examples of some other brands that have taken this and showing you guys why it's important across any product area that you'll develop. So we have a Nike example, which everyone knows, Dyson, Nivea. So my favorite one is actually Dyson, just because, like, who likes to vacuum? I think I know 3 people that like to vacuum, one of which is my father. But like, it's sometimes hard, right? It's not the most easy thing to do. And so you're trying to figure out what the honest example is. If you were to ask a consumer what they would say about why they need the Dyson cord-free vacuum, this could be an example of something someone would say, right? I struggle to get into those hard to reach areas. There's your insight. That is something that you can build an entire concept off of by figuring out what is the answer to this question that people have or the problem that people have. Benefits. This is, for me, really exciting because people are now aligning themselves to brands that give them emotional needs, right? So people are buying clothing because it's sustainable. People are buying beauty products because it donates back to certain organizations. The emotional, intangible benefits are becoming almost as important as the functional ones. And so I urge you, as you kind of go through these motions and hopefully work with ProQuo to develop these things, of like thinking about what now people are going to say and why they want to align themselves to your brand, why they want to be seen holding it or buying it in the grocery store, right? There's something to that. And then functionally, right, your product has to be able to get your consumer to where they want to go, like what they wanted to purchase this product for in the first place, whether it be a really delicious food brand or, a new hair care product. Does it actually do what it says it's going to do? And those are kind of your functional benefits that you can kind of check off as you go through development. So some examples of these. So, the more functional side, the tangible elements, it saves money, it works better. It has this amount of calories, it's got, this low sugar. There's different ways you can look at this. It's eco-friendly, it's clean, it's better for your skin. Great functional benefits that I think are always a staple now. Always look at brands. And then from an emotional perspective, for us, it's like thinking about ways to just change people's emotions, and that optimistic, getting noticed, something that you want to tell your friends about, right? There's nothing better for a brand management perspective than hearing your consumers sharing your brands with people, word of mouth, right? Like if you get people to do that, you don't even, targeted ads are important, but having consumers talk about how great your product has been for them from a benefits level is huge. And I think that that area is great to build off of and great to then build your brand and develop your strategy from there. So some examples of some of these benefits, right? So for Nike, we know that high quality sneakers or trainers need to look good and feel good, right? There's this balance of looking good, feeling good, but also being able to perform. And so those kind of are emotional and functional benefits kind of connected into one. Back to Dyson, my favorite thing, the performance attraction of Dyson, the fact that they kind of make it feel exciting. They've brought excitement to cleaning in a way that no other brand has been able to do. And I think Dyson has continued to do a really good job of making people feel like they're buying something that could be on a spaceship, but is actually just used in your own home. Reasons to believe. So reasons to believe can kind of span a few different areas. I think it depends on I will say it depends on the area in which you're going into, right? So a lot of times you would use your RTBs or reasons to believe to compare yourself to other products, right? So, more moisture, 30% more product, less sugar, better for you. Things like that can be really good ways to differentiate yourself from product to product. But it's also great to just kind of lay out what your product is, right? So we are, made for weak and brittle hair. We will, we're sulfate free, and kind of always focusing on what you're doing versus what the competition's doing. I think it's kind of a nice balance of showing why you're different and then explaining to consumers why your product by itself is actually the best product for you. One of the things that I love about RTBs, besides just saying RTB, because that's just fun to say, is, really narrowing in on those like 3, maybe 4 things that really bring your product home. This list doesn't need to be extensive. In actuality, it should really be hyper focused. Most times today, you're seeing products that can like make your hair shiny while making your skin better and then making your body feel better. Like, let's focus in on what it's supposed to do, because at the end of the day, consumers don't want to be lied to. They want to hear that RTB and believe that it's going to happen. So if we look at some of these, at the end of the day, I love Dyson's because it's powerful suction to deep clean your home. At the end, that is like the best reason to believe ever. And similarly for Nivea, right? Like, skincare should feel good and cared for. And for men, I think that's a really big hurdle to kind of jump into. But like, simple reasons to believe here in these products. They're direct and to the point and give you like a clear idea of what you're going to get for your money. So diving into merchants, as you guys can see here, this is the actual product that we launched. It's in stores in Connecticut, North Carolina, and New Jersey right now. We kind of work on a test model, but we worked with a couple agencies to kind of get to a place where we went from concept to product development, packaging, all that fun stuff. But one of the areas that was always consistent for us was like the tension point. And so this can be really helpful in developing your insight. And I won't read this word for word, but the whole idea about this product was kind of born in this idea that a lot of brands are telling you to like do more. They're telling you to find your beach, not to throw shade at Corona, but like they're telling you should do this. They're showing young people when you're not a young person consuming their product. They're not being real or appreciating where you are in your current time period, or where you are in your life rather. And so I think for us, when we were looking at this, your drink should represent you and should represent you as your taste change. It should grow with you and things like that. And so for merchants, this ugly truth of not feeling like you're enough kind of came about, where we realized there was a really cool opportunity for. So this opportunity that we kind of realized and very much appreciated, I'm in my 30s. I thought this was a really knowledgeable insight. The ultimate sign of maturity is appreciating your reality rather than wishing your reality was somewhere different. And so really kind of like, not to use a cliche, but like being in the moment and appreciating where you are and enjoying your life as it is, and kind of like realizing that you're actually in a really good place and you should enjoy that. Take a moment to appreciate it. And so our insight for merchants is to kind of go through this, since we talked about all these things. Our insight is enjoying non-alcoholic lemonade and tea. I always enjoy it. But as I've grown up, my tastes have changed and they've matured, and I want something a little different. I don't want that high calorie, options that are out there right now that kids are drinking at 18, 19 years old, but I want to enjoy the actual alcohol version. And so our product is a line of sparkling lemonade and teas, lightly sweetened with honey and barrel aged for a more grown-up lemonade and tea experience, a more mature taste for when you're feeling a little grown up. And this idea of a little grown up came about and was like so exciting for us because it's real, right? Sometimes you feel a little grown up, whether you're in your late 20s, early 30s, or whether you're in your 60s and you're feeling just a little grown up, because sometimes you can be a little bit not grown up at all. And so our RTBs are that we're 110 calories, we're 4.5% ABV, and we have really low sugar. That's actually using honey to be the natural sweetener there. And so this is kind of our concept board and what we've really brought into meetings with clients, meetings with retailers, distributors, and they realize that this is a cool opportunity, right? Like they're seeing massive growth for brands like Mike's Hard and Twisted Tea. I'm not sure if they're available all over in the UK, but they are a very stigmatized brand of like your 18 to 21-year-olds consuming it, underage and just sugary and not great. So people were excited when they saw this and they realized that there was a need for it. And we're seeing the sales results come in that it's working and that people are aligned to not only the functional benefits of the product, but the benefits as well, the emotional benefits of feeling a little grown up as well.
Awesome.
I'll
Sophia,
pass it back to Michael for a few minutes so I can catch my breath and then I'll come back.
Amelia, if there's any questions or comments to those that are listening in, feel free to pitch in if you've got anything and just come off mute and interrupt me. So I'm going to take this a step further and talk about how a concept can then be positioned to lean into building kind of strong relationships with people. Ultimately, that's the goal for any product. So regardless of what concept you're creating, the role of a brand is to build a strong relationship with people. And the stronger your relationship is, the more inclined someone is to interact with your brand. So we study relationships at ProQuo, and we've kind of defined that there are 16 independent things, we call them drivers, that kind of showcase the power of a brand's relationship with people and assess their feelings and thoughts towards a brand. So whether you are familiar with ProQuo or not, you can think about these 16 things and use them to shape how you conceive your new product concept. And you can lean your new product concept into any one of these areas, depending on how people are feeling towards your particular category. So let's actually stick on this for a second. So half of the relationships that we have with brands tend to be emotional. You can see them across the top from attraction and aspiration across the right. And half of them tend to be rational, from clarity and performance across the right to accessibility and familiarity. And equally, half of our relationships with brands tend to be seductive. We're somehow drawn towards brands, and we're also persuaded by them based off of how we experience them in market. The element of seduction when it comes to kind of engaging with consumers and people's relationships with your brand can be things like, how attractive do I see that brand? How empathetic is that brand? Does it understand my needs as a consumer? Do I feel seduced by their aspiration? Are they a brand that seems desirable? Are they innovative, like Sophia's example of Dyson? Is their role clarity? Like, is their purpose clear in my life? Do I know when to use them, when to drink them, when to buy them? Is it a relevant brand to me? Is it a differentiated brand to others out there in the category? And does the brand perform well? Does it serve kind of its core purpose? So in the case of my past days at Axe Links, is it a long-lasting fragrance, for example? The other half of kind of your relationship with a brand, and you can think about this, with any brand. Imagine your favorite brand. You can consider, why do I love them? You're persuaded somehow towards them. You can look at how they behave and how they present themselves. Do you connect with that way? Do you relate to the way that the brand behaves? Does that brand behave with integrity when it's faced with a choice? Does it do the right thing? Is it a popular brand that a lot of people seem to like and buy? Is it one that presents itself transparently in like an open and an honest way? Is it an accessible brand? Is it easy to use when I get a hold of it? Is it simple? Is it consistent? So is it a reliable product experience for me? Is it valuable? Does it justify its cost? And do I know a thing or two about the brand? Am I somehow familiar with what it stands for and what it's all about? And the funny thing is, when you're developing your concept, it's really helpful to understand kind of what people feel they need within the category. And people tend to need different things from different categories. This is an example of beer here. If you look at that category, you can see that people tend to feel quite like rational. So the greens are obviously the positives and the reds are more of the weaker drivers. They feel that the category itself is quite rational, it's heavily persuasive. So if your business objective is to say to disrupt the category, what you'd want kind of to formulate your concept around is actually to hone in on the elements of emotion and elements of seduction. Oftentimes what people feel they need within a category is dictated by what they know to be true about the category. So what you can do is completely change tact and actually play in spaces that are a bit less expected. So when considering how to develop my concept, all of these 16 things are important when it comes to creating a relationship with people. So you want to kind of separate out what's considered hygienic in my category. What is it that people are expecting my brand to deliver, and do that well, compete on that element. But if you're looking to, say, steal share or disrupt the category, even to grow it, there are disruption opportunities with that by focusing on under-penetrated spaces where people's relationships with brands exist, but they're not yet capitalized upon. And so if we were to create a concept within beer, it might be a more emotional type of concept that's how open and honest the brand is, or the company is, its level of aspiration, its innovative quality, and its integrity. Sophia, I'm going to pass it back over to you to talk about optimizing your product concept.
For sure. And I will say, Michael's, the chart that Michael just presented is really interesting, because as you start to develop your products and you work more in brand management and innovation, when you walk around a grocery store or you walk around a store and you're shopping for products, you start to really pick up on things that you probably wouldn't have previously. And I think it's really exciting. I urge you to walk around or go check out an area where your category is in, and really just like stand there and take it all in, right? Like, I think it's the best research tool you can get is like, I've stood in a Target, a Walmart, and just watched people come up to the beverage aisle and just look at what they're picking up. And like, it's the best way you can do it, right? You can pay a ton for research, you can do all this stuff, but like, go out there, understand it, take those pillars that Michael talked about and actually experience them. So that's my extra 2 cents there. But yes, so going into kind of facilitating this concept and really bringing it home, right? There's a lot of different things that are important. And so right now, choice is probably the biggest thing. People have a zillion choices. It's almost overwhelming. I kind of call it the Netflix problem, where you want something, but you don't know what you want, and you kind of just continuously scroll through your movie options for the night. And so figuring out what's going to grab people's attention is really important to help them to make the choice for your product. So claims, The Ordinary is a fantastic example here. They've really shaken up the skincare industry. If you're not familiar with them, I urge you to check them out. They've taken very simple products, packaging, and kind of branded them in a way that just is really clear for what people are actually interested in. But claims are really important, especially in CPG. As Michael mentioned, like from a deodorant perspective, that aisle, there's a ton of claims, fresher longer, or different areas that people are interested in. People are very much attached to claims, and it's important that these claims are understood by consumers, right? Like, there is a lot that you can say legally that you can't say, but make sure you're making the right claim for your product, and something that you can also back up, right? Gen Z is coming in very hot, and they are absolutely a group of people who are no bullshit. They will, go through your business and actually be able to divulge your claim and make sure it's right. So our advice that we always kind of talk about is like, you better be able to back it up, because authentic brands are very important today. And so making sure that your claims are attached to the right audience is also important. But yeah, make sure they're authentic and they're real, because otherwise Gen Z will come for you and you don't want to know what happens after that.
Can I just add on to that, because it hits close to home with me as well, is that it's very different to say, can we support that versus can our product deliver that? And it's more of the latter that you want to focus on, because you might get trial out of can we support that, but you're not going to get repeat if the experience underwhelms people. And that's what goes back to like the relationship building between brands and consumers. It's so important that what you say and what you do is an authentic reflection of what your product actually can deliver.
Right. If you're telling people, for a great example is Heineken has Heineken, obviously Heineken Light and Heineken 00, which is new. And so, if people aren't feeling like Heineken Light is a lighter beer, if they're not getting that claim of lightness from the beginning, they're not going to drink it, right? Like we have to remember that, like, to Michael's point, you're building a relationship with every single person that buys your product. And so it should feel almost like a one-to-one relationship, even though it's not, right? It should feel like that. You should feel a personal connection to those claims and be able to back them up. I think looking at skincare is probably the best example, because there's so many options that say you're going to like make people look younger and do all these things, but when it comes down to is, does it actually work?
Yeah, exactly.
So testing the concept, I can't stress this enough, that like testing the concept and getting it in front of people, whether that's like a formal testing platform or talking about it with people in your near circle, need to get an NDA out there, but like figuring out who you can talk to about your products and really understand what people want, right? A lot of times we are zeroed in. I look at concepts for 6-7 months and I am like totally blinded by what they are not saying, right? So it's important to make sure you're looking at getting your product in front of the right people, the target audience, as well as other people who may have additional things that you didn't even think about. And so actually one of the things that we do from a cross-functional perspective is we talk to our lawyers as if they're also marketers, right? We ask them the same questions we would ask our sales team. We bring in people from operations. You want to get insight from all different areas, because at the end of the day, your concept should be able to answer all those questions that people have.
What's really interesting about that, Sophia, as well, is like in the structure that you outlined around insight, benefit, and reason to believe, if you have a really true insight, like your concept, even if you put it into a test, it can be optimized if that insight is true.
Always.
So concept optimization is really key, and focusing on that human truth and that insight. If you nail that, then even if you don't get the benefit or the reasonably perfect, that concept can be improved.
Absolutely. We actually have taken, we've done a couple launches, and what we're doing when we launch a product is we actually test them in super small areas, really hyper targeted markets, so we can get the learnings and, to your point, optimize. Not everyone has the luxury of doing that, but one thing that I think is really important is we've had a product already not be super successful, but the insight is right. We know that the insight is like 100% there. It wasn't on merchants, actually, it was a different product, but like we know that that insight is right. We've all aligned to it. We've gotten the backup, but the product didn't deliver on the insight, right? And so like, that means we're going back and reformulating, we're cleaning up the marketing elements. There's just a lot that you can learn from testing and learning. And I will say this, like, get a few hundred samples and give them out to people. Like, there's so many different ways you can do this in any area of what you're developing. So testing your concept and optimizing it, like, don't feel married to it. Like, there's a reason why you iterate and you do things again and again. Packaging. So this is something very near and dear to my heart. I'm a packaging weirdo in that, like, anytime I get something in the mail or I go to the store, I'm like picking it up, I'm playing with it, I'm feeling the textures. And I recently got something in the mail yesterday, a new bathing suit brand that sends you your packaging. They're individually wrapped, but they are compostable. So you can basically bring them out into the garden, put the bags in there, and they'll become, compost or worm fodder, whatever you say. But it's really interesting because they're trying to be, sustainable, especially for a brand that like is bathing suits that go in the ocean and that could potentially be harmful. They like have thought about every aspect. And so packaging nowadays is becoming so important. For me, it's about usability as first and foremost, right? Is this packaging easy to use? Is it going to be, if it's meant to be taken with people or they travel, is this accessible on a vacation? Is this accessible during through TSA? Like, thinking about all of these different things are really important, right? Like, for a use case of a product. So shampoo, as you guys can see here, this example, like having a, ladies and men, I'm sure you guys agree with me, like having a push top for your shampoo is great because you're able to get more out of it. Like, thinking about all the ins and outs of your package and why it's going to be successful. In alcohol and in beer, we actually have had consistent problems with the outer packs. And, in the same way, we're actually everyone's going away from the top lids, the plastic rings, thankfully. And we're actually like industry-wide getting rid of those because we know that there's functional reasons behind it, but also, you know, emotional benefits of why people don't want those things anymore. And so think about the functional and the emotional benefit of your packaging. That can almost be, you know, a few months in and of itself, but like there's a ton of new packaging opportunities out there, whether it be eco-friendly or recyclable. So definitely do the due diligence to like research what makes sense for your brand and figuring out what's important for your target consumer, right? Because they might not be as connected to that eco-sustainable nature, but they might be more into the functional areas of how to use it. Price. So this is a really fun one because at least in the US, everywhere you price something is going to be different, right? So merchants in Charlotte probably cost less than it does in merchants in Connecticut, just by nature of what you're doing. But looking at the competitive average across of your products, pricing it appropriately. What I will say is be smart about how you price it because you can always come down. It's much harder for a brand to come up in price once they've already kind of established themselves. Leveraging coupons, leveraging discounts, leveraging consumer codes of like, you know, first timers get X amount off, or, you know, loyalty benefits. A lot of these things play into price. So as you're thinking about how your product is going to be priced, use all of those different tactics to kind of think about how it kind of plays out year over year and along the consumer journey, right? So if you have a first time buyer, what's incentivizing them to come back? Things like that, that I think allow you to really figure out what's the right price to go in with. And there's a ton of different models now. You can go direct to consumer, you can go in store, you know, there's a lot of different margins to think about from those different ways. And then range. So like this one I think is a great picture too, because look at this aisle that she's in, right? It's overwhelming for anyone and everyone just to buy a cracker, or yeah, cracker, not a biscuit. I sometimes forget what I'm talking about, but the customer appeal and thinking about like the overarching range of your product is really important because you don't want to create something that then you feel like is stuck a little bit. So what is the right range of your product? What can it do? Can it cannibalize existing products? Can it be expanded on? And I think that, you know, when we've thought about merchants, we were like, okay, we have a ton of flavors we can expand into. There's a lot of range here, and we're not going to cannibalize our existing product line. So if you have, you know, if this is your first product, it's good to start thinking about where you see your business growing to, you know, 3-5 years on the line. If you're creating a new product within your business line, ensure you're not going to be stealing share from yourself, right? Like rule 101, don't cannibalize your own business, but if you're going to do it in a smart way. And so I think that like thinking about the longer term, keep it in the back of your brain, but it's super important to make sure that you're, I guess, ideating for the future as you will. So this is merchants, just to give you guys a little bit more on it. Kind of went through this a little bit earlier on. As I mentioned, 4.5 ABV, 6 packs, 12-ounce cans, and it's doing really well so far. We're excited about it. You know, there's things that we want to tweak. I already know off the bat, this has been in market now for almost 5-6 months. And I already know I want to change the packaging. Like I already know that off the bat, because I know there's optimizations I want to make. There's learnings after we've sat with it for a while. And so, you know, it's important. It's okay to have those. What I will say is like your go-to-market strategy does not have to be perfect. It takes brands sometimes a year to get out to what their final packaging will look like or their final marketing opportunity will be. So, you know, iterate, take the chances, get something out there, put it in people's hands. First and foremost, that's the best way to get insight, as I mentioned. And so, you know, try new things, test your brand, see what works, and then take it back and optimize it. That's like the best learning. I can tell you guys, I can go into specific details, but like we already are going to change packaging. We might change some things about the liquid. We just know the brand is working and the insight and the RTBs are hitting home for consumers. So we're going to keep it going and we're going to optimize as we go along and expand.
All right. Thanks so much, Sophia, for all of that. It's fantastic. Every What the Fact webinar is actionable. And so we wanted to provide for everyone that's here a product generator, essentially where you can input your own insight, your own product benefit, your own reason to believe, and a bit of a description about what your product's all about with a stylized image, and automatically create your own concept board in a really quick and easy way. So we have that for everyone who's here. Just let us know if you'd like us to chuck it on over, and it is yours. And as I mentioned at the start, we have a feature within Proco that's called Creative Lab. Ooh, look, it animates, which allows you to get instant kind of guidance on how any new product idea is delivering and how it can be most importantly improved. So to Sophia's point around optimizations being really key, within the Creative Lab, in literally hours, you can get 300 people's feelings and thoughts on your idea at any stage of its development, with an understanding of how that idea can be taken to the next level and how it can help your brand achieve whatever goal it wants to before it even hits market. So we do have that feature that comes with kind of a detailed report on up to 3 different concepts that you can pit head to head against one another, with an understanding across the 16 drivers of a brand's relationship with people, which concepts are majoring best on, you know, what's expected with a category versus where your disruption opportunities are. And all of that is available. So we have a free Creative Lab if you guys would like it, access to that. That is for you all, either by, you know, raising your hand, drop a comment, email Amelia, whatever you'd like, it's yours. And with that, we've got about 5 minutes left. We're bang on time. I don't know if there's any questions for Sophia or myself, but I'd love to open it up if anyone would like to say anything.
I just saw a question from Jonathan that I think is fantastic. And it's something that Jonathan's question was about, what are your, having identified that there is an opportunity for a new product, what are your recommendations for how to come up with ideas for the product? So there's a lot of ways you can do this. There's a ton of agency opportunities that you can connect with to help you develop the right areas. You can connect with experts and things like that. But what I will say is, like, get a group together and start throwing stuff up on a board, either in person if you can, or digitally, right? There's a lot of great ideation concepts right now that you can leverage, but like, just have a conversation about it. Grab some consumers, grab some friends, grab some family, and start to like think about what they are liking about a product that's currently in market, and then what they don't like. Start there. Start at what's currently in the market. And if there's nothing in the market, then even better, right? You can start to think about what people are interested in getting. But start at a base and kind of work your way up, figuring out what's happening right now. And what I will say is, like, it takes time. Ideate, toss for an idea, sleep on it, come back to it a week later. Keep those things going, and then slowly but surely you'll get to where I think you want to go. But coming up with a new idea is can happen anytime. So, and it can come from anyone. So I suggest doing it with people. I think ideating alone is much harder. I hope that answers your question.
Anything else in the chat, Amelia?
No, just a few requests for the deck and the concept generator. So you'll all receive a copy of the webinar, but those who have explicitly asked for those too, I'll ensure that someone from our wonderful team sends that out as well.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. And as I mentioned at the start, we run these sessions monthly, and we'd love to see you guys again. And I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Sophia